What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I want to revisit the lovely KTM 450 EXC Nighthawk Edition. I am honestly so glad they actually brought this bike back because for one, many players are most likely using something like the Yamaha, which don't get me wrong is pretty decent. Then we also have the 450 EXC and or the Red Bull Edition, which obviously both of these bikes are actually not motocross bikes, but we also have the Kawasaki as well, which I never actually see anybody run this. Then we also have the RMZ 450 as well, which I have been noticing this bike being used a lot more often than the Kawasaki. But to be honest, guys, with the Nighthawk Edition actually making a return, I'm going to go right out and say this. This is by far going to be the best overall motocross bike in the game. Not only that, though, this thing is also going to look insanely unique. So for one, you guys are probably going to notice the tires. Also, that nice dual exhaust system coming out of the back. You're also going to notice a crazy looking front fork design on there. Do not worry though, it's like a double design with that crazy looking headlight mount. And then one thing I did notice though is around the tank design of this bike, it kind of does remind me of like a KTM Duke. Overall, guys, this bike is honestly going to look insane. I really do think a lot of players are going to love this thing, basically for the motocross events and or if you actually have to use this thing in a stunt event as well. This bike is honestly going to be like a jack of all trades. If I did have to choose one bike, it's by far going to be this one. What's kind of interesting as well is in the past when this bike was out, I normally never actually ran this thing in most of the summits and or like any events. I kind of felt bad actually running this bike because I know a lot of players did not have it. One thing I was also thinking about back then as well is the fact that many players most likely didn't want to go after this bike. I mean, for one, it was basically the highlight of that motor past, and how many people actually want to go after a motocross bike? They're probably like, you know what, I most likely do not actually need this thing, so I really don't see a point. But to be honest, guys, having this bike is going to make future summits so much easier. I really am glad they actually brought this bike back so many players can actually try this thing out. One thing I was noticing when testing out some of the other bikes is the fact that yes, some are definitely going to be better than others. I was finding myself using the Yamaha a bit more often. I was always secretly hoping that the KTM would actually make a return. Like for example, guys, if you did want to use this bike on like a motocross event, whether you had to like level up these bikes or like get some parts for them, or maybe you had to do one of these events in like a summit, this bike is by far going to be the best. And one thing I also noticed, the top speed of this thing's going to be like 104 or 5 miles per hour, which is actually going to make it one of the fastest motocross bikes in the game as well. Which I would say a lot of players are going to find this to be kind of interesting because for one, guys, upon first glance, 4 or 5 miles per hour is most likely not going to make a huge difference on one of these bikes, but believe it or not, if you are going down a hill and or hitting your nitrous, you're actually going to be able to speed away just a bit faster, so this in return is going to help your time, especially in the motocross events. And not only is this bike going to be insanely good on those races, but you can also jump into some of these stunt events and go absolutely insane with this thing. For example, guys, on these stunt events with the motocross bikes, the biggest thing is you have to wheelie. And my goodness, can you wheelie the Nighthawk Edition so easily? I was mentioning in that summit video that all you really have to do is be in like 3rd to 4th gear and lean up a little bit and sometimes slightly hit your nitrous, and you can basically hold a wheelie almost forever. I really do think this bike is going to be like a jack of all trades. You can easily jump into any of the races and do great, and then of course when one of those annoying like motocross stunt events show up, you can grab this bike and easily do great in one of those to score decently for that vehicle and or that platinum reward. I really do think this bike is going to be a great investment. Not only that, it's also going to look insanely awesome as well when you're in these events, so the Nighthawk Edition is definitely going to be worth a look, especially if you guys are looking for an all-arounder. This bike is honestly going to be incredible, but I do want to know your thoughts on this thing in the comments below, and here are my settings. I'm currently running on this crazy motorcycle.